Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today we finally got the Void lore updates that Riot have been working on, in addition to Kai'Sa's full backstory. So I'm very excited to go ahead and break down these things for you guys today. First up, let's just start with the Void updates in general, as I think this does a lot to explain kind of the direction that Riot have been taking, and also relieving my fears that they were going to do the Void wrong. Now, essentially, what Riot have confirmed is that we have a new understanding of how the Void is structured. So there is still the Eldritch unknowable dimension that to look upon it is to invite madness, insanity, transformation, that sort of thing. That's what happened to Malzahar. That's why he's all messed up. However, there are also what are basically called void fissures or void ruptures, which are basically in the ground, and voidborn that spawn below the earth are able to crawl up through these ruptures and eventually terrorize the outside world. Now, these ruptures are obviously filled to the brim with voidborn and voidlings and other terrifying aberrations, but they are not the same as the Eldritch dimension. You don't go crazy just by being in them. Essentially, it's the same thing that happened with Nami. Rasho probably actually entered the void or spent a significant amount of time near a void portal, which is why he transformed. Whereas Nami was only there for a very brief amount of time. She was essentially in the underwater equivalent of one of these void rifts, so that's why she didn't transform at all. Now, that also explains Kai'Sa's whole shtick, but I will get to there in a second. But so that's how we basically have changed how the Void works. I think it's a good compromise between having areas of the Void, technically, that players, or that champions can interact with, but also have still maintaining the sort of Eldritch, Lovecraftian nature of the Void that we've all come to know and love. Now, Void structures, interestingly enough, they wither and go into a dormant state if they're not near magic or organic material. So it kind of goes to show that the best way to deal with the Void is to starve it out. If you put nothing near it, if it's buried down below the bedrock and there's nothing nearby, Void structures, Voidborn, they all don't do anything. So essentially the only thing you can do is hope to dear God that they never wake up, because that way you don't have to deal with them at all. They just sit down below, hopefully staying dormant forever. However, people of Shurima mistakenly sacrifice to these void rifts, sending their firstborn children, goats, whatever, into these void rifts to appease them. This is mostly the doing of Malzahar. They don't realize what they're doing, but it's feeding the void and making it stronger so that it can eventually come out from underneath the surface and try to subsume all of Runeterra. So I think that's a little neat touch. We also got an entire story talking about Acathia. Acathia was not originally Void-based. I guess it was originally, and it could potentially be a reference to the Mage Lords referenced in Aatrox's lore, where they were conquered by Shurima. They've been Shuriman thralls for a long period of time. Eventually, their mages figure out, hey, there's this whole Eldritch dimension we can tap into to try and beat Shurima's army. And that leads Acathia to become a void blighted ruin where everyone is killed and the ground is salted throughout, and basically everything is terrible over in Acathia. So there's also the possibility that the main character that we see in the Void story could possibly be Jax. Obviously, his name wasn't Jax, but as we see, the character completely forgets his own name. Alternatively, Jax could be one of the characters that we see in the story. Potentially someone who didn't quite make it out of the ruin of Acathia and who transformed very significantly. Other than that, we don't know. We haven't heard the full story of Jax yet, but I would love to hear exactly how Jax came to be the way he is. And that's basically my biggest complaint about the Void update in general, is we only got updates for 2 of the champions, and we got Kai'Sa's full story. So we don't actually have any information about any of the Voidborn, which I would love to see how they fit into the lore and how what direction Riot are going to take these characters in the future. And alternatively, I would have loved to have seen more description about Jax, because he's still kind of up in the air. We know a little bit more about him than we did before, but I think he still definitely needs a full bio at some point, so I would love to see it. But anyways, moving on to the individual bios. So let's go ahead and talk about Kai'Sa, as I've been a very outspoken critic of the direction that Riot have taken with Kai'Sa and with how it doesn't match up with her backstory at all. Now that we do have her full bio, we know why she wasn't transformed, because she was only in the Void Rifts. She never actually entered the sort of Eldritch Cthulhu dimension that would have caused her to transform, become, you know, a complete monster, that sort of thing. Now, that being said, I'm still disappointed in Riot for her design. I think you had a really solid concept, and you still kind of threw it out the window by just saying, she's a sexy girl in a bodysuit. I'm incredibly disappointed by that still. That doesn't get justified. However, her backstory does answer the question of why she wasn't transformed in the first place, so that's nice. It's also interesting that her second skin was not gained by any flash of insight that she had. She didn't kill a voidling and say, oh, if I put its skin on, I won't get corrupted, or this will protect me, or that sort of thing. She literally killed a voidling, and its skin just kind of stayed attached to her skin and started growing onto her. So that's kind of cool, because it shows that Kaisa didn't really understand exactly what was happening. She didn't make a conscious choice. This is the void, again, being kind of terrifying and just saying, oh, you killed me? I'm going to be a part of your body now. So, and it also raises the question if the skin is entirely benevolent. Obviously, it's kind of covered her body, and it does give her information about when Voidborn are coming. It kind of notifies her with what she describes as sort of needles in her skin whenever there's a threat nearby. But I'm still not sure. There's the potential that it does have other processes and other thoughts that we don't quite know yet. We also know that Kaisa's ult transitions her briefly through the void, same as Kassadin's R does. That's how they're able to move so fast. But it's also why when she ults, she puts the mask on, because that's when she is going through the Eldritch dimension, and she needs as much protection as she can to prevent from going insane and to protect herself from the corruption. And we know that she's only lived in the void rifts. She hasn't inhabited the void proper for long periods of time. So again, that's why she hasn't transformed. That's why she's still mostly sane. Again, disappointed that she's not actually an insane transformed monster girl. That would have been really cool. But at the very minimum, Riot justified her appearance. Finally, moving on to Kassadin, it's actually interesting to note for me, first and foremost, that his name is actually just a bastardization of the Shuriman phrase Kassadin, which is whom does the desert speak to, or something along those lines. But basically, people would ask for him by saying that, but because they're mostly outsiders, they slurred the words, and eventually he just becomes known as Kassadin. So I thought that was a really interesting part of it. I do wonder what he was called beforehand, or if he even had a name. That's not entirely clear, but it's interesting to know how he got the name Kassadin in the first place. His wife and child were both disappeared into the void, and Kassadin blamed the prophet, who's Malzahar, on his wife and child disappearing, and he swore to try and kill the prophet and try to bring his wife and child back. So Malzahar actually made his own archenemy here, and I think it was an interesting way to have Kaisa not be just straight up sacrificed to the void, but also to have Malzahar still create his archenemy and still have that massive rivalry between the two, beyond just the fact that one hates the void and the other loves the void. Now, we also know that Kassadin's suit and sword are weapons he found or stole in order to get revenge, including the Nether Blade. That's actually something he nicked. Apparently, it's an ancient Shuriman weapon, that sort of thing, so it's interesting to know that. But the thing about it is, the story concludes before he actually reaches Akathia, so we don't know if his powers are void in origin, or if they're just the result of his suit. And I would love to eventually see a full story for Kassadin come out where we do see him enter the Screaming Abyss void, and kind of understand what the consequences of that might be, because very clearly he doesn't gain the power to walk through the void, having never visited there before. So I'm hoping Riot release his bio in the next couple of days, or hopefully at the bare minimum next week, so we can understand how Kassadin has the powers that he has. Finally, Malzahar, he's essentially the same as his older bio, but I think his new bio gives a lot more context about how he kind of slowly went mad, and how he experienced the void, and how he eventually came to realize, you know what, we can't win. The only thing I can do is hasten the world to oblivion. I thought that was very well done, and I think it describes it a lot better than Malzahar's prior bio did. So, and I also like how it kind of makes the status of him being a prophet a lot more clear. He's not, technically speaking, working with the Void. He's not in any way, shape, or form like the superior being of the Void who gives orders to Voidborn. He's more of like a very outspoken fan of the Void who's doing whatever he can to help them, but at the same time, he's not like, you know, actually working for the Void itself. So I thought that was interesting. Again, none of the Voidborn bios were updated. Really disappointed in that, but hopefully those are coming sooner rather than later. Anyways, those are just my kind of thoughts on the Void lore updates. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. Go ahead and let me know what you guys are thinking of the bios, of Kaisa, of the Void in general, the direction Riot have taken. Anything you want, let me know what you're thinking. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. And if you're looking for more Grab the Lantern content, you can check out my blog, link down in the description. I upload an article just about each and every single day for your enjoyment. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I will talk to you all later.